This week on the OneCast, you guys are going to learn about how those little green fish are moved around the United States. We are joined by the Bass Tubs of Oklahoma.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's going to be a bad day.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back. Episode number 1,000,005. No, I'm just kidding. I think
66.
It's like 66. Episode 66 of the OneCast. We appreciate all of you guys following us along on this journey. It's been a heck of a ride, and we are so excited. And you know what? We're getting to have a pretty good show today. A very interesting topic. Not a lot of people, I think, know about. But before we do that, Ben, you want to kick us off with that first sponsor?
Yeah, make sure you go over to OneCastFishing.com. Use the code TheOneCast. Super easy to remember. Save to 10%. Pick up your snagless jigs, long neck hooks, soft plastics. Actually, they have been restocked as well. So time to get stocked up. The bass are going to be moving up, and time to go catch them.
That's right. That's right. Speaking of the bass moving up, we crushed them. We'll talk about that here a little bit. But Pete, what did we use to protect our face during that last tournament we had?
Hobie hour came in key. We had not the greatest weather. It was pretty rainy, overcast. But as you know, those harmful UV rays, there's still glare on the water. So we were rocking the Sight Masters all day in the floating frames and kept our eyes protected. And in the few instances where we did do some things other than what we did to catch the majority of our fish, we were able to see a little bit, look for, those shallow fish and stuff like that. So Hobie Eyewear always comes in clutch. They got the floating frame series. We got videos on social showing how well that works. Link is in the description. Make sure you use that link to order yours, because you'll save 15% off and then free shipping, and order yours today and protect the rest of your body. Head over to CarolinaWatersNC.com. Use the code TheOneCast, all one word, at checkout to save 20% off. Get your UPF clothing, your casual wear, hats. I think they still got some beanies. They got a few hoodies left. I know it's getting warm. It's not really hoodie season, but if you haven't grabbed one yet, it's they still got some left, and they're great. The sleeves aren't too long. We've been wearing the heck out of those here recently because of these dang cold fronts we keep getting. So CarolinaWatersNC.com, code TheOneCast. Make sure you check them out. Get the gear to protect your body and your eyes.
That's right. I already got that cliche angler suntan going on my face from my sunglasses, and hopefully I get that flip-flop tan line here soon. But if you also want to get another tan line on your own little piece of paradise, you can hit our buddy Eric Schwind up. He is the representative for Mossy Oak Properties in the Sandhills region. You guys can reach out to him at 936-494-9686 or shoot him an email at eschwind@mossyoakproperties.com. He'll get you hooked up with your little slice of paradise, looking for some of that country land. Look, they're throwing up residential developments everywhere, all around. They got a new one coming up here. They just bought 600 or 800 acres. So if you guys want to preserve some of our land and build your own little piece of paradise, or just have good hunting ground, or just enjoy the outdoors, hit our buddy Eric up at 936-494-9686.
Yeah, we're not going to go into Trey and I's last tournament, because if you joined us on Fishing Friday, we gave you all the details. So if you weren't there, go back and watch the VOD. We talk all about it. There's questions about it and all that good stuff. So go back and check that out. You can get all those details. I do want to, just because it's our first recorded episode since, congratulate Justin Hamner.
Yep.
On winning the Bassmaster Classic this year. Second year on the Elite Series. Young angler, heck of a guy. Caught him how he likes to catch him, which was throwing a jerk bait, something that he likes to do.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that might be, everybody gets emotional when they win that event, but he was exceptionally emotional. It was
100%.
it was really good to watch. And then for our North Carolina folks, Hank Cherry had some big news up there. It sounds like his career is winding down. Not surprising. He's been big on family. I know his kids are super involved in baseball and other things. And I'm thinking he wants to spend more time doing that. And that's what it sounded like. So hopefully we get to watch Hank fish for another year or two or more, but totally understand if he does step away. And that it sounds like he was kind of leaning that way. So I know there's a lot of fans of his being a North Carolina guy. And so that was he tried to squeak in there and steal that one. And his fish kind of went away. Justin's fish didn't. And,
it was absolutely a great event. lot of jerkbait fish, but there's a lot of jig fish too, a lot of crankbaits, even spinnerbait fish. So, we all know live scope played a role, but it was nice seeing some of those traditional baits come back.
Fujita said on the last day, every fish he caught, he did not use forward-facing sonar.
Yeah.
So guess what, guys? You can still catch them even without it.
There were some comments. People were shocked when they saw him flip a spinnerbait in a laydown. Like, what is going on?
That's the juice right there. The Bassmaster Classic is the pinnacle of any fishing competition out there. We all know it. It's got more history than, I do on this planet. So, but that's what everybody says about the Classic is you get to fish your style of fishing. Of course, you got to adapt and overcome, but it was really cool to see the variety on Grand Lake of the Cherokees.
Everybody can fish free when there's no points. Right. There's nothing on the line. You're going to get a check. It's a winner takes all event. Doesn't impact your season. So guys go out there and do what they like to do, and it makes it fun to watch. And speaking of the Classic or any event, if you've gone to the expos, you've probably seen a tank with bass in it.
Mm-hmm.
And we ran into these folks at Raleigh. We talked to them. We have Adam Hinkle joining us with Bass Tubs of Oklahoma to talk about those tubs and just kind of give us a 411 on that, because it's something that I don't know a lot about, and it was something that's interesting because we see them at all from iCast to the Classic to any show that you go to, really across the country has those.
Trey's got experience at the
you got to stand up there.
We're gonna talk to Adam. We're gonna talk to Adam about that, but let's bring him on, man.
Yeah, yep.
Adam Hinkle, how you doing, brother?
What's up, guys? How are y'all doing today?
Man, we are doing great. We got a little bit of rain, overcast. That's why it's nice to be tucked away here in what we call the TOC, which is the OneCast or Operations Center, if you want to say that. But we appreciate you taking the time. You're on Central Standard Time, if I'm not mistaken, down in Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's really cold and raining here, so I'm glad to be here and inside.
Hey, man, good thing the Classic just wrapped up, because you guys were down at the Classic, correct?
Yeah, I was in the Bass Pro Shops booth down there. Yeah,
awesome,
with my biggest tank. They just basically rented it as a place to just as an aquarium to be down there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, a lot of shows, there's a lot of podcasts out there, and they're all great. They all bring their own venue. But when we were at the Raleigh show, and I actually didn't get to talk to Adam at all, I was up there watching, I think it was KVD. If I'm not sure, I was smacking my lips.
Oh, blew my eardrum out.
I was up there watching KVD, and then some of the local guys, do their lure demonstrations. And I took a picture of the side of the Bass Tubs of Oklahoma, like the symbol on there with the phone number. And I talked to Ben and Pete, and I was like, I don't know anything about how these green fish get moved around, where this concept came from, all this stuff. But I know that we see it everywhere. And like Ben was saying, and he had to bring it up because it was probably I feel like I'm a good public speaker. But in 2022, right, Ben?
Yeah,
2022, we went down there with Ben's company, OneCast Fishing, to promote the snagless jig. And so I'm standing up there, and I think it might have been your tank. Were you at iCast in 2022?
No, I was not.
Okay. Well, whose ever tank it was, I was the most nervous I've ever felt, because I followed every professional angler, and I was the last act, I want to say, of the day. And all I could think to myself was, please don't backlash. Please don't backlash. Please don't get snagged on something, So it was really cool to partake in a lure demonstration. But I wanted to ask you if you can kind of just provide a general overview of the Bass Tubs of Oklahoma, how that concept came to fruition. And we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, I acquired this company be 4 years ago today, but this company is actually about 40 years old. The guy that started this company used to fish the Elite Series with Hank Parker and all of them, and so that puts kind of an age on him. His name is Chuck Devereaux.
Okay.
He fished in the late, I believe, the 80s and the early 90s, and he decided to get off of the road because, once again, he's like Hank Cherry. He's a very much family man, And I grew up living not more than a few miles from him, and happened to become best friends with his son, which was my age, and we played Little League together. And so he took the idea. Someone else had the idea, and he purchased it. It was in really, really bad shape. I still have that trailer that he bought in the late '80s to start the company. And then from there, he had a shop build 4 more. So he did, I think at his peak in the '90s, was producing about 250 different shows every single year.
Wow.
Which was crazy how popular fishing was back then, and just the event industry in general, because nowadays anyone can go online and get any knowledge and any new baits at their fingertips. But back in the day, the expos, shows were the only way that they could get that new stuff. And so that's how I came into this business, is I happen to be best friends with the guy that started it.
That's interesting. I never thought about that. I mean, you're right. Like YouTube and Facebook and all the social media platforms out there, like people can just learn right on the fly. We talked about that a while ago. And Pete specifically mentioned it, like the learning gap is closed so much. Like these new anglers coming up, they kind of just know the stuff based on watching YouTube. But as far as the concept goes, I mean, I still think, and maybe you can provide some insight on this, like it's still applicable. Like just because you can watch it on YouTube, like seeing a lure in front of your face before purchasing one, like going down and all the action and stuff like that, there's still a high demand for that, correct?
Yeah. Mainly, I'd say about half the people that we talk to across the U.S., they don't even know what these fish are, or how to catch them or anything. And so, we also speak to people. Like I did a seminar probably 3 years ago, or no, it was longer than that. It's probably about 7 years ago, where Ott Defoe is sitting in the audience. So I mean, we talk to anyone from people from 3 years of age up to 95 years of age, with all different fishing experience, and we still have to entertain them somehow. So sometimes it can be pretty difficult, but yes, like you said, hearing it and how it works versus being able to actually physically see it, that's 2 different things. And that's what I tell people is, in order to be a good fisherman, if you don't have one of those trailers, you got to use your neighbor's swimming pool and actually get in there and see the lure move, and you will be able to know, how that lure works and how it will catch more fish.
I think the big question that a lot of people want to know, or at least probably the 3 at this table, where do the bass come from?
It depends on the show, but most of them I buy from a fish hatchery. The ones that you saw in Raleigh, they came from a fish hatchery. And I can fit about 25 of them at about 3 pounds a piece in the back of my truck. So I purchase them from a fish hatchery, and I haul them all the way out there.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
We take really, really good care of them. Way better than PetSmart. I promise you that. We have to we have to actually provide oxygen to them. So we've got oxygen in the back of the truck. And then we have to change the water on them twice a day with chemicals to treat the water. And then we have to change the water because they'll actually be pooping in the water, and it can kill them because it causes ammonia in the water.
Yep.
And so there we have to take, and then in the summertime, we have to put ice on them, because it can get too hot in the back of the truck. So we have to keep the water temperature pretty much at 80 degrees or below. And that can be hard, especially if you're in Texas in August.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's like a dang.
It's
like a 3-month live well ride.
Exactly.
I can only use them for 2 weeks at a time.
Okay.
They start getting, we don't want the fish to die. We're all about, conservation. Even whenever we use the fish, we never let anyone just take them to go eat or anything. We donate them mainly to people here in Oklahoma, where we're from. Like all my family, you can imagine the amount of fisheries we have around here. You know,
Yeah.
we have a lot of ponds around here, and every one of them have very, very good, fisheries for largemouth bass. That's for sure.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So while we're on the fish topic, you said you can hold about 25 fish in that tank. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's a 55-gallon tank that's sealed in the back of the truck.
So when you guys go to different venues, and we'll get into that later too, which venues you do go to, like areas and stuff, because I think I don't believe you're the only company that does this, but when it comes to the fish, like is there a certain criteria for the fish? Like, do they have to be a certain size, a certain age and stuff like that? Or is it just you get what you get? Or do you ever drop like 10 pounders in there?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked. We are actually going to be. Have y'all heard of the McDonald's big bass splash down in Texas?
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's Bob Seeley's tournament. We're about to be there in what is that? Right at 1 month, we're going to be there, and yes, there will be multiple 10-pound bass in there. For all the big fish from the tournament get thrown in that tank. So,
that's us.
Man, there'll probably be, I'd say, at least 10 9-pounders and probably 2 or 3 10-pounders and maybe even 11. That will be the size that wins that one.
That's just a draw to go see that thing, to go see all those big fish up close and personal.
Yeah, no kidding. So besides going to shows, like expos, like, can you kind of break down like all of the different venues that you're a part of? It looks like you're going to a tournament, you go to the expos, things like that, but it's got to be more than that, right? So like, what's your guys' main mission outside of the expos?
Yeah. So, the expos, as you guys know, only happen for about 2, maybe 3 months of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And so that gives us, 9 months where we're really not doing much. So we do stuff where churches around here will hire us to come out and do like a beast feast where we just entertain people. We do probably 4 or 5 of those a year. Church camps for kids, we do those. Cities, a lot of cities have grand opens for like a certain block that they're trying to provide a park or an area where they're opening up a whole bunch of stores and stuff like that, where they put on a big event, and we provide, we go to those shows as well. We've even done a birthday before. So,
Trey, I want a bass tank on my birthday.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. A kid wanted it, and Dad said, "How much?" So,
Does the birthday boy get a catch 'em out of it?
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Really? Yeah, because I know at the lure demonstration tanks at the shows, like, you guys will bend the hooks in or cut them off or whatever the case may be. And that's just so you're not sticking all the fish in the tank. But is that the case for all the shows, or are there exceptions to it to where you want to see fish caught out of the tank?
Yeah. So I'll be honest. So you happen to be up there. I don't know if you saw me get up there or not. I don't know. I was up there a few times at Raleigh. But I actually don't cut the hooks off of mine, mainly because I own the bass, and I would like to catch them.
You paid for them. You can do what you want. Yeah,
exactly. But when the fish are provided to us, like say Bass Pro Shops, they provide. You can only imagine how much money they have invested in a 10-pound bass. So. Right. Whenever they ask us to bend the hooks, we don't catch those fish, not if I ever want to do business with Bass Pro Shops again. But whenever I bring the fish, I tell all those other guys to do that. But when someone like Kevin Van Dam or Hank Cherry gets up there underneath the trailer, I tell them, hey, it's perfectly fine if you catch a fish. We just don't want to catch all of them because people are trying to show their lures. And it'll sell a lot better if they at least can get one of them to look at it. If we were up there, if me and Kevin and Hank were up there just jacking all their jaws, they won't be biting. There's an art to it. We don't want to catch them all the time, all and we don't want to mistreat them in any way,
Yeah.
so we're not going to try to foul hook them or snag them or anything like that. But we definitely, if one happens to bite, like I tell all the pros, like the promoters pay for them to be there, thousands of dollars. I can only imagine how expensive Kevin was. So I absolutely, he didn't even get up on the tank. He did the show down below the tank.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But any of the pros, like Randy Howell, he's a good buddy of mine. Every time he jumps up there, I tell him, absolutely, show us a good hook set.
That's right.
That's awesome, dude. Is it only bass, or do you guys do other species of fish for different shows?
Yeah, that's a good question. During the summer here in Oklahoma, I don't know how crazy you guys are, but have you ever thought?
Noodling?
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna say it.
Yeah, we do. So it's gone down. It used to be really popular, whenever they were doing that national. Oh, what was it? There was a Mud Cats, I think is what they called it. It was a huge tournament. It was all over the National Geographic. That was our trailer that they used for, I think it was like 3 or 4 months straight. But anyways, what we do, there's a bunch of noodling tournaments down here, and we go to the show and they put 30 to 40 pound catfish in this thing. And the best part about it is they make people sign waivers, and for $20 you can climb up in the trailer and noodle catfish.
All right.
$20.
$20 and get your fingers bit off, man.
Well, I tell you what, I would much rather do that, because it's probably irrational fear to stick my hand in a hole in the water where I can't see, you can't see
That's
2
true.
inches. I'm always afraid to be a snake or something down there.
Well, I'll tell you what, I did that noodling thing one time, and I remember meeting some of the guys down there and be like, man, just stick your hand in a hole, it'll be fine. It's like, where are your fingers at, man?
No, you stick your hand in first.
Yeah, exactly. You stick your whatever you got going on there. But that's interesting, man. Like, from an outside perspective, it's like it's a tank. You take bass around to shows, but so much more than that. I mean, birthday parties, different species, tournaments you guys go to. What are you guys going to do with the bass that get put in there from what is it called? The Big Bass Splash in Texas? They're just going to go in there for people to look at, right? And then they go right back in the lake. Is that the deal?
Yeah, that's the deal. Yep. Yeah, they just go right back in. And there's a lot of places across the U.S. That the wildlife department actually shocks the fish and brings them to us. I would love to have more contacts to be able to utilize that more, because traveling with fish is incredibly hard. And
I can get you hooked up with a guy here in North Carolina.
Yeah, and it costs the venues so much money for me to travel all the way out there with these fish. I just bought at the Classic, I bought 25 fish. The bill on those fish, not even including me having to go and get them or anything, was $900 for 25.
Wow.
Yeah. So
and 3 pounders, right? You said 3 pounders?
3 pounds or 2.5, give or take.
So Adam always has a limit, probably the biggest limit of any angler out there.
That's right.
He's always
most consistent.
Most consistent angler on tour.
Yeah, I don't think so. At that Red Crest, did y'all watch the Red Crest?
No,
we didn't watch a lot of it. Yeah.
Oh man,
what happened?
What was it? Dustin Connell. His bag was 83 pounds the final day. He caught 27 fish. So he had 83 pounds of fish that he caught on the final day. It's insane. I don't know how that's possible.
Yeah, that's a lot of weight. What were you saying, Ben?
Well, I was going to ask, so like this tournament, the Big Bass tournament down in Texas, will those 9 and 10 pounders, will they also go with the share lunker program? Will the state take them, or they?
Oh no,
or
they get
just go
released back. They get released back. Okay. Yeah. But
I think share lunker is 13.
Oh, share lunker is 13.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah. I'm thinking here in North Carolina, it's like 8 pounds, and they give you a certificate. But that's
I forgot about that.
But the government does do it. The Department of the Wildlife there in Texas does it. they're the ones that release them, because we had a problem one time where you can imagine that at this tournament they're projecting 7,500 contestants, so to speak.
Jeez, man.
So, and some of them are by themselves, and some of them are two in a boat. So you're looking at about 4,000 boats all going to the same dock, or really close to the same dock. So you can imagine what all that exhaust is doing to the area that right around the weigh-in. And so it had to be 10 years ago or so, but we dumped a whole bunch of 7, 8, 9 pounders right there in that bad water, and they started floating. And so, but luckily we didn't lose any of them. The wildlife department happened to be there and see it and run and get their boat and take them to better water as fast as he could. So
Wow.
we've learned over, I think this is the 50th anniversary or something like that, 40th. But we've got it down to an art.
Wow, I didn't even think
Yeah.
about that. Bunch of two-stroke and stuff going on. You know what I mean? So you guys are out of Oklahoma. There's definitely some other companies, but what areas is there a restriction on how far you'll go, or you'll go where the money tells you to go?
That's exactly right. I've tried to do where I can have one bid as far as money is concerned, and then go anywhere. But with diesel prices, it's next to impossible. So what I do is I just bid on how far the job is. And for Bass Pro Shops, I actually know this one was for the wildlife department, like of the U.S. I don't know the MWF is what they were.
Okay.
Wildlife something. I don't know their exact name, but we did a bunch of camps around the U.S. for kids, and they wanted me to go from Miami, Florida, all the way to Seattle, Washington, in a 2-week span. Yeah.
Oh, God.
They saw, and get this, it was just for a 1-day camps for kids, at each event. And the bid was so high, there's no way they were going to be able to take that.
Sure.
No, yeah. That's about as far as you can travel.
Yeah. Up and over the Rockies, pulling a 12,000 pound trailer. That's a lot of money. So.
I didn't know that. It's just interesting listening to this, because I thought you were like you worked, for just only the shows and stuff. But literally anybody can call you and say, can you bring some fish to my house, or bring to a venue or whatever, and you'll say this is what it costs, and you'll do it.
You bet. Yeah, we
So
do. We have had a trailer in all 48 states. We have done a show in all 48 states. We even had a mermaid get inside of one of our trailers out in Los Angeles.
That makes sense in Los Angeles.
My anniversary is coming up in a few days, and I'm like, you want to bring some snapping turtles up here? So you'll put anything in the tank. Is there any off limits on the tank?
As long as it's, freshwater, and we don't kill it, of course. And the hard part is getting them. So if a fish hatchery can purchase it, if I can buy it, then I can put anything freshwater in there. We've had stripers in there before. We've had just about every freshwater species you can think of inside of these things.
Okay. Yeah. Do you guys do anything with saltwater, or is that a totally different, like another company does that?
I've wanted to dabble in that, but the problem with that is I wouldn't have the slightest clue on how much salt to add in order to make it good for the fish, and then the next problem is I don't even know where I would purchase saltwater fish, in order to throw them in there.
Yeah.
So I'd have to have someone local catching like redfish and trout out of the inshore. And I really think the best way to do it would be to literally get ocean water pumped into that thing. Would be about the only way to do it. I'm not opposed to doing it. I've never been given the opportunity.
So if you can't buy bass, say you come to North Carolina and you can't buy bass from the hatchery. I didn't even know there was is there a bass hatchery here in North Carolina, or did you have to get them down there? You said.
I most of the time I bring them from down here. See, in North Carolina, all the hatcheries that I have called, and I called about every single one of them this last year because it would benefit me to not travel with them and be able to purchase them the day before the show. That's way less traveling, and we've killed fish before because the oxygen shuts off. In the middle of the night, we're sleeping, a leak happens in the hose, or the valve breaks and there's too much oxygen. You can kill them that way. And we've had problems like that come up where we have to start calling around and see who can let us go out and catch 25, 30 fish the morning of the show. So
That's crazy.
Hey, I tell you what, if you can manage to pull that off, like that's impressive angling feat too.
Well, I was going to ask you, so like if you say, let's just use this as an example, you come up to North Carolina in the summertime, you can't find anywhere to get the fish from. Do you hit up like a local angler to catch the fish for you, or do you have to go catch them yourself? Is there some sort of like law that applies? Like we have a 5 fish limit, 14-inch minimum. Like how does that work?
No, as long as the people have them in their local ponds is the best way to do it.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Now, if they did go to the lakes, we would have to get in touch with the wildlife department and tell them what we're doing and that they will be returned. But they would be perfectly fine with that.
Man, I'm just thinking to myself right now, like you could call Ben, Pete, and myself and just say, hey, I'm coming up there in the summertime. Can you go whack 25 fish on a summer school? Yeah, we might be able to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it just depends, but that's not a guarantee.
No, like I see like I'm just looking at it from a pure marketing standpoint, like for our friends at NCWRC, like we'll definitely get you connected with them and maybe y'all can do something, next year when you came up and they can shock some fish up to you. And then that gives them an opportunity to say, look, these came out of our fisheries. These are the quality of fish we have and things like that. So I'm thinking that way, but yeah, I mean, I can't imagine, traveling from Oklahoma to here with 25 fish in a 50 gallon tank in the bed of your truck. Oxygen. I just think everything we go through in a tournament to try to keep a fish alive, you're trying to do it over a couple thousand miles, several days of travel, having to pump water in and out and chemicals and oxygen. And it's impressive and like kind of mind boggling to me. I think I just always operated an assumption that those fish came from somewhere local once you got there. I just never in my mind imagined that you had to travel with those fish. So it's pretty incredible. Yeah, I'm kind of blown away.
So with the new, I know you've heard of it. I think last year they launched it at ICAST, which was the fish lung, and Pete's wife, she talked about it significantly on the show last year. But are you incorporating any of that new technology into your tanks, like the fish lung, or is there something even better than that you guys use, or how does that work?
Oh, the main thing that we do, that me or my employees, what we do is we just teach people about fishing. Like if people approach us that want us to demonstrate their lures, we will do that. And we've got sponsors and stuff, but we don't really do anything other than knowledge. As far, there's, like you said before, all the locals are there trying to sell their products, and as a part of my seminar, I start right off saying, guys, I don't care if you buy from me. My job is to get you to catch more fish. That's all I care about. I want you to be happy. I want you to spend less time fishing and more time catching. So
yeah, we kind of. Oh, go ahead, man.
No, go ahead.
So we kind of skipped this part. Like you talked about purchasing the company 4 years ago. You're a tournament angler yourself?
I have before, but with this, I have so much going on.
Well, I was going to ask you, like you purchased the company, but like how, like, did you even know what you were getting into, like when you purchased the company?
Yeah. So whenever I'm 35 now, which is putting an age on me, but whenever I was 15 years old, I was already fishing tournaments with my best friend. And of course, Chuck, who was an elite fisherman at the time, was taking us to all these tournaments and having us competing as 15-year-old kids. You can imagine the look on everyone's faces when we pull up in a, back then, a brand new Triton TR21, completely sponsored out and back then, especially in little Podunk, Oklahoma, on these local tournaments, you got little John boats fishing it basically, and there's huge boat come pulling up. That's an elite boat. And he's got 2 kids on it. So, but anyways, at the age of 15, I was working on these trailers, and I was doing welding, painting, getting the acrylic, the glass, basically anything you can imagine to make maintenance wise on these trailers. Everything from the axles to literally everything. It even has a small boat on top of the trailer that we have to put carpet on, and but anyway, so from the age 15 till I was 20, I was just working on them. And then whenever I got off into college, he started losing people and needed me to go and start doing this shows. So at that point I started doing seminars, and the rest is downhill. Been doing them.
Man.
Yeah. Went to college.
I can imagine. You went to, where'd you go to school at?
Went to college at OU, and I kept, this isn't a full-time gig. Unfortunately, it's, bass fishing is very January through April, pretty much, sometimes into May, but that's about it. It gets so hot, people start getting ready for hunting, especially down here. So during college, I remember accepting an award for something in my field was construction management. And I remember accepting an award at like 10 o'clock in Oklahoma, and I had to drive one of these trailers down to South Houston to set up the next day. I loaded up my girlfriend and loaded up one of these trailers and took off. I was 21 years old and had to go drive all night to get down there to set up a trailer. So I've been doing it for a really, really long time prior to that. He just turned, I think, 70, and his doctor and his wife basically said, you have to stop. And so he used the COVID-19 as an excuse to go ahead and get out. And that's what he did. He's, I asked him what he was going to do with it. And he said, I said, if you ever want to sell it, just let me know, and I'll see if I can keep it going. And that's what he ended up doing. None of his kids wanted it. So,
well, there's definitely still a market for it. I mean, I think it's one of the very first things I look for when I go into either Bass Pro Shops or I go to an expo. I always look for where are the fish at. Like, I want to go see what they got in the tanks and stuff like that, but as crazy as the world's gotten, with social media and like all this, negativity and stuff. I know how it is for some of my friends that work in different sectors, not so much in bass and stuff, but with wildlife in general. Do you ever get any flack from from organizations that think it's inhumane to travel around with fish?
Yeah, we've definitely not from organizations, not since from when I've had it, but PETA was huge back in the day. And that's where the whole taking the hook off and not catching the fish inside the trailer came from. Back in the day, it was a big deal back then. But nowadays, we don't really ever have any problems whatsoever. And the biggest stuff that I have is, people will pull up and they'll be like, all those poor fish, and there'll be people standing out there, and I'm just like, no, like these have it made. They were going to be supper. Like they were at the fish hatchery. they raise those fish to be for dinner. They sell them to fish markets. I don't know who eats bass, but that's why they're raised, and that's why they're raised to. That's why they're raised to that size, the 2 pound. Any of your pond stocking, which I was trying to say that earlier. In North Carolina, they only sell the pond stocking size, which is about 6 inches, anything from finger length up to about 6 inches. And that's about it. They sell them all by the time they get bigger. But here, a lot of a lot of these fish they raise them and get them as big as possible and sell them for food. And so, people will be like, "Oh, those poor fish, you're mistreating them, all this." And I'm like, I saved their life. You're going to sit here and tell me. So, yeah. As far as though, I've never had nothing. Nothing has came up ever with me.
You obviously travel with I don't say obviously, but you travel with the tanks empty, right? They're not full of water when you're going down the road.
That is correct. Yeah, they have seatbelt laws, and I'd have to strap them in and everything. And so definitely, these trailers are so heavy. They're about 12,000 pounds a piece, and the biggest one that was at the Classic is 4,000 gallons. So that's 32,000 pounds of water. So
good gracious,
that's the reason that it has 3 axles on it, and it has 6 jacks holding it up. And it's solid steel. There's no aluminum or anything like that on it. It's all very solid iron. And that's the most frequently asked question by far. And no, we can't even move it with a couple inches of water in it. It squats those tires so bad because there's so much water in it, and water is incredibly heavy.
How much does the glass weigh?
Each one of those sheets, yesterday I took all 8 of panels out of one of my trailers, because you can imagine how hard it is to keep they bounce going down the interstate, and you're trying to then get 3,000 miles away or 1,000, 1,500, and then park it and expect it not to leak, even though you hit some of those overpasses and you can literally see that trailer bouncing going down the road. And so these things, they probably weigh about 250 pounds a piece, maybe more, maybe like 300, something like that. But I have a crane that does it.
So when you get to a show or you get to any venue, like how many people does it take to set one of those up?
Just me. That's it.
Just you?
Just one person. It's you are everything. That's why everyone's like, what exactly do you do? Well, we're technically a professional truck driver. We're a professional speaker. We are a professional fisherman. We're basically someone that can do a little bit of everything, in order to do this. And so when people are like, man, everyone should want to do that. And I'm like, yeah, but finding someone that can do this is very hard. I can find someone that's a truck driver. Absolutely. But does he like fishing? Nope, doesn't like fishing. Well, that one's out the door. Or the biggest one by far is, can he speak? Can he get up into a crowd of sometimes 200 people and talk? Like Kevin Van Dam. I don't know which one you went to, but one of his shows had to have 200 people standing in it. And in order to have someone that can be a professional truck driver, talk about fishing to 200 people, and possibly be on TV, it's very hard to find someone that can do all that.
Oh yeah. You definitely have, there's a lot of Kevin Van Dam he's an exception. Like, he's very well spoken. He's been doing it forever, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Have you ever got up there during one of your seminars and just had a giant brain fart and you're like, what am I doing?
Every time. Every time. I remember the very, I was actually out there in North Carolina, and I happened to be in between two professionals, and one of them was Mike Iaconelli. The other one, I don't even remember who it was, but the promoter put me right smack dab in the middle of them. I did a seminar to 250 people. I was so nervous. I was shaking like a leaf. I don't even remember what I said. I probably didn't say anything good.
With the education and information piece that you talked about, you just want to educate people on everything related to fishing, but probably bass fishing, I would assume mostly. Now that you have the boat up there, I've seen the front of the boat. Are you looking at incorporating forward-facing sonar? I have to ask, right? Like, people are probably going to ask for it, right? Like, you drop a trolling motor in there or whatever. Like, this is what the fish look like when they're on, whatever active target, Garmin Live Scope or Mega Live.
You can see them with your eyes from the side of the
I
tank.
know.
No, that's actually, I haven't even thought of that. The biggest thing with me is, this isn't a huge company. I'm a very, very small time guy. Everyone thinks, man, you must be doing great. Not really. This is my side business. I've got another business as well. And for me, I absolutely would, if one of those companies like Lowrance would sponsor me, I would in a heartbeat. Absolutely. But I'm not going to do stuff like that. That makes my job harder without getting something in return.
Yeah.
Sure. No.
So if they were to approach me and give me, one of those $5,000 units and say, "Hey, can you do this?" I'd be like, "Absolutely, I'll do it right now." But they won't.
I mean, I think it would be interesting. I mean, I don't know if those conversations will happen in the future, but like I could see, especially the young kids or maybe even the OGs wanting to get up there and be like, all right, man, I'm tired of this stupid jig head minnow going out there and kicking my face in. Like, let me see what these bass actually look like. Do you ever do like a mixture of bass and crappie or white perch? Do you do that at any of the venues, or is it pretty much just one species?
Yeah, whenever I purchase the fish, I only just do bass, mainly because it's just easier. But whenever I have them shocking the fish and bringing them, I tell them to bring multiple species, but mainly bass because, they are the sport fish of America, as far as the freshwater is concerned. But we all the time have other species in there. And I like people, people don't like to see, like, if you look at my fish, they're all identical, every one of them. But, and if you go to like an aquarium, the greatest thing about it is you get to see different size, shapes, colors, different species. And so that's why every chance I get, I absolutely tell them to bring different species. But we just can't have small ones in there.
Yeah.
The reason is it's very hard to get them out because I've got stumps and rocks inside this thing. And if they're really small, they'll get up underneath there and they'll hide. I won't see them. And then we'll drain it all the way out. And then now I've got dead fish. So,
oh man, you just got to go noodling for those little crappie.
that's exactly what I do. And it's awful. I don't like doing it.
Well, your shows that you have that you go up north for, because you said you're all 48 continental states. Do you get smallmouth to go for those smallmouth, areas of the country?
No, so
I imagine.
So you guys mentioned earlier that I'm not the only tank, and there's another guy up there. His name is Jim. I don't know his last name, but he has the Berkeley tank. If y'all have seen that one, him and I, he gave me a show in Minneapolis last year. Like, we're technically competitors, but we are the market for the US. Like, there's us and there's them, there's a couple other guys that have like a trailer here and there, but they don't do it like we do, where we travel and do it. They just kind of I think we just sold one of these trailers to a tournament trail down in Florida. So they're going to have it for them doing it, just them, but as far as traveling, we don't normally go up that far north. He stays up north and we stay south is mainly how.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, if a show comes up that he can't possibly get to, he doesn't want to lose that business, and have them have to miss the show. So he'll just call me and say, "Hey, can you come and do this show this year?" I'd be like, "Absolutely." So
That's cool.
I want to dive into some of the craziest things that you've experienced since you've owned the company. So first of all, like, besides the incident with the fish getting dumped and, like they were starting to float, have you ever had like the glass break at a show and like the entire place get flooded?
Luckily, I have not had that one happen, but at last year's Bassmasters Classic, I had just bought in one of these trailers and they set outside, all year. And so the sun is really, really bad for them. And right before that show, I got it and I took it because it's the biggest, nicest trailer, right? There was no cracks. There's nothing. As soon as I get to the show's already going. It's like Saturday or Sunday. There's a crack halfway down one of the panes, and it would just happened overnight. It was like there was an earthquake or something. Like I don't know how it just that I've never seen that before. How everything's perfectly fine. The water's been at that level for 3 or 4 days, and all of a sudden on day 4 or 5, a huge crack happens in the glass, and it was leaking. But luckily, it was leaking off the backside of the show. Sometimes they utilize both sides of the trailer, and sometimes it's just one side. And I got lucky that they were only using one side of the trailer, and so I was able to save that one from being a disaster.
How stressed out were you?
Oh,
you had to be stressed.
You have no idea.
We were at something.
That was ICAST, the same air tray. They have two at ICAST. They have one that just shows fish, and then they have one where they do the demonstrations. And their aquarium one, we had one of the panes exploded while they were filling it up.
Oh my!
Flooded half the building. It was a mess.
I've heard nightmares like that.
Yeah.
What about go ahead.
Another one that I've had. I was doing a show for a church one time, and they had really, really bad water pressure. Right. So everyone's like, how long does it take to fill up? Like, well, it really depends on water pressure. We did a show at the Tampa Bay football stadium 2 years ago, and 3,000 gallons filled up in an hour and a half. It was like a whirlpool. It was crazy water pressure. I've never seen anything like it. It might as well have been a fire hose out of a straight water hose, an hour and a half, 3,000 gallons. It was crazy. But on the other end, I did a show at a church that took over 12 hours. I don't remember exact. And it had to fill all night because we didn't account for that. And the guy, the pastor, neglected to tell me that he was on a well. Okay.
I was going to ask that, like, yeah.
And so for those of you that don't know, if you have a well and you turn your water hose on and you leave the water hose in, when you turn it off, it'll actually start pumping everything back out into the well, which is crazy. I didn't know that existed. And luckily I had the hose. I already had all the fish in, everything. It was just filling. I told the pastor, I was like, hey, is it okay if I just, he's going to be up there till midnight anyways. Can you just turn this off for me when the water level gets up there? He's like, yeah, no problem. I show up the next day, and I happened to have the water hose to where it went down to the bottom, but it happened to be about a foot off the bottom. It wasn't resting all the way on the bottom, and it was kind of up just a little bit. And so whenever I showed up about 7 o'clock in the morning, there was no water left in it except for about a foot. And I was like, I started looking around. Wow. I was like, where? I thought it flooded the whole thing. I was out, where's the water? And sure enough, he was on a well. So
I had no idea. I have part well water. Now I know that for future reference. So I just definitely learned something. What's the worst thing that's have you ever seen a bass like regurgitate something just absolutely atrocious in your tank?
Yeah, that's a good question. They do all the time. So whenever they shock the fish, whenever they shock them, they regurgitate little bait fish all the time. You'd be very surprised. And then, of course, I know you guys are going to like this. Every time I do a show, right, I told you I catch some of mine, whenever I take them. But whenever I get home and I empty the water, I find little Cincos floating in there, not floating, but sinking down at the bottom. So they're sitting there taking our baits, but just so everyone knows, education wise, fish won't digest those, and they will spit them up, so
yeah, they'll either spit them up or they'll be coming out their bottom end when you catch them. I've definitely had that happen. Yeah. Seen that happen. I've caught one where it's about a quarter of the way out, and you're like, well, we're going to go ahead and give you that bass enema you were looking for. You know what I mean?
I've pulled more than one Cinco out of a bass's rear.
And sinkers too. I put still attached to the line.
Oh yeah. We got lead and fish. No, I'm just kidding. Have you ever had bass eat another bass or try to eat another bass in the tank?
Oh man, 2 days ago at the Classic. Absolutely.
Really?
They're all 2.5 pounds, and they just sit there and just bite at each other. Bass are so territorial. They hate being up there next to each other. They hate it, but that's just how they are. And so they just sit there and just bite
Man.
at each other. Yep.
Well, dude, you got your missions all over, wherever the money will take you, of course. But you talked about some of the sponsors at the beginning of the show, or some of the people that support you along the way. Who are some of the guys or some of the companies rather that give you guys some support?
Well, we used to have Chuck, mainly the guy that owned it before. He was an Elite Series guy, and so he had those same companies forever. And they changed some, and he used to get a boat every year from Triton. He was actually there with Earl Benz when he started Triton. That puts a little bit of a number on how old he is and how long he's been in the business. But he had everyone. These trailers, not the one that you saw, but the other two still have probably about 30 different sponsors on them. However, with COVID, he left and all the sponsors left, every single one of them. And so right now I've got one sponsor. I've tried to talk to a bunch of them, but what they want nowadays, they don't really care about the trailers. They want professional fishermen. I don't really know. I don't really understand why, because if you look at the amount of exposure that I will do versus just a guy that's on the Elite Series, sure, he's going to have a lot of exposure, but me going to, 20 shows all across the US, maybe more, at 5,000 people, not including traveling down the road and stopping at hotels and stuff. I mean, it gets a lot of exposure, but what I think it's like a company policy. They want professional fishermen. Like that's what it has to be, So I target the small time guys now, and I've got one soft plastics company, but it is what it is. For the longest time, the way that Chuck did it, he could charge not very much for the show. Where he made the money was sponsors, right? It's like these guys that are fishing the circuit, they don't even win sometimes, that all the time. They don't even win any money whatsoever, but they're well off because of their sponsors, right? That's how they live. It's like all the professional athletes. That's how they get so much money, is all those sponsors. But for me, I had to immediately, as soon as I took over the company, I called everybody and I was like, look, I know you've been doing this show for 3,000 for the longest time. However, that won't even cover the diesel getting out there. So I'm going to have to go.
Yeah.
I don't have sponsors. So you can stay with me, or I guess it was nice to know you. But
yeah, for sure, dude.
But a lot of them stayed, though. It's pretty wild. I almost doubled everyone's what they are used to seeing for 10, 15 plus years, all these shows. And then I basically said day one, like, here we go. I'm about to lose everyone. Yeah. But no, a lot of them stayed. They're like, we understand, and we got to have a trailer. So.
No, that's awesome, man. What do you guys, so you guys just got done with the Bassmaster Classic. What are some of your upcoming venues that you're going to be going to, and where can people find you if they want to look you up so that they can attend those venues?
Sure. I have a Facebook. That's the main thing that you can find me on, Bass Tubs of Oklahoma. We do have an Instagram that my wife set up, but I don't even know how to access that thing. But as far as shows go, I have been gone from January 1st. I left out, and I literally just got home on Monday. So I was gone for almost 3 full months and hadn't even had time to see my family or nothing. So we have done so many shows. Like I said, we've got 3 trailers. And even last weekend, I had a show going in Georgia at the exact same time as the Classic. But as far as upcoming shows are concerned, I've got 2 big bass tournaments, and I've got probably 2 or 3 more that are bass related shows, expos that are happening throughout the summer. But other than that, it starts to dwindle off into into nothing. I've got some noodling stuff that's going to come up this summer. And I do have an archery trailer, which is really cool. It's
Oh,
a 3D archery range where we put releases on people one at a time and have them shoot a mountain lion or a deer, and that we
huh.
do in the September, October months. So that's always that's always cool.
So for anybody looking to reach out to you to schedule an event, what is the best time of the year to reach out to you, and how do they reach out to you?
You can email me. That's by far the best way. basstubsok@gmail.com. But also, like I said, Facebook is a very good way to do it. And you really want to book about 6 months in advance, because it takes a lot of logistics to get me out there, a lot of planning, and it's like a first come first serve basis. A lot of my repeat customers have already sent deposits in to book for 2025. Because
Okay.
they automatically know a year in advance we're doing it. So, and I only have 3 trailers, and like I said, it's hard to find people, and
Yeah.
so at most, if I get lucky and happen to be able to find 3, I could do 3 on one weekend, but for the most part,
Mhm.
2 is about it. So if I already have 2 for that weekend, chances are I'm not going to be able to do a third, because it's so hard to find people that can do this. So it's
Well, I mean, like you said, you pretty much own the market for the certain part of the continent, and then the other guy owns the other part. But hopefully we can get you some exposure through the show and get some of our listeners. And hey, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody calls you and says, "Man, my son's birthday party's coming up. Like, I'll bring some bass up here." You know what I mean? So,
Somebody might call too and say, hey, I'm a professional truck driver, angler, public speaker.
yeah,
You know,
I mean,
we might find you an employee now.
I don't know. I mean, I retire here, and I'm not counting the days, but like 200 and something. So, but hey, I might drive a trailer for you. Who knows, man? I might have a limit of bass every time.
I did start some a little something else that I haven't done before, that I'm going to start this year. I want to do a separate service, because nobody has these trailers, right? And so I want to do a service to where if you have a lure that you want underwater footage of, of a bass attacking the lure, for any type of reason, maybe for advertising for your lure, that it works, something like that. I also offer those services to get underwater footage. But
Awesome.
also
Yeah.
I do Skyping. Like I said, I get paid to listen to guys like Kevin Van Dam, right? I get to go to these
Mhm.
shows and learn all the secrets from Hank Cherry, Randy Howell, all these guys, Bill Dance. I can go all day. I've heard all of them speak. They all pretty much know the same stuff, and I get to put my seminar together and teach people how to get on fish better, faster, and I offer my knowledge to do a seminar over Skype as well, and I've done that a
Okay.
few times. So
Is that the same way, reaching out through that same email that you provided for that service?
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Or on Facebook, absolutely.
Okay. I got one final question, and I'll turn over to Ben and Pete before we wrap it up. Out of all your experience watching all of these lure demonstrations, what is the number one bait that catches the most fish?
The Cinco by far.
I already knew the answer to that before you even said it.
I will.
I hate it here.
You can imagine how I know it. I do too. I don't like using it. It's so boring, but it has for many decades dominated the bass market, and you can imagine how many lures I've thrown in these tanks. Everything, as far as the colors to the sizes to everything, and what the bass will hit the most by far is that Cinco, and it doesn't even look like a fish.
No, it don't. No, it don't. And I do have one more question. I'm sorry. Is there any lures that nobody can demonstrate in your tank? Like I know you can do deep diving cranks, but is there a lure that just doesn't really work very well because of the distance or anything like that in your tank?
You better not. You better not throw that Alabama rig in my trailer. It's not legal in the tournament, so I don't want to see it in there. No, no.
Yeah. No, Adam, I definitely appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no. I let anyone throw anything in there, anything that they want. I am out there. The whole reason that I'm out, that the shows are able to get me out there, is because the guys that buy all the booths are pay for me to get out there, right? Without them selling product, without customers purchasing from them, there's no way that I would be there. So I try to help them sell all their product. That's what I want.
Yeah.
If I make them happy, they will come back again, and that's how it all works. Try to make them happy.
That's
Try to
awesome.
make them sell. Try to make them sell stuff.
Ben, what you got, man? Well, I definitely appreciate you coming on. My interest is now peaked. It's been a long day, but yeah, I'm gonna have to get in touch with you to get some underwater footage of the lures, because that'd be great. Because here I do it in my lake. I've got like 4 or 5 feet of visibility, but it's not super clear, because you have all the turbulence and all the stuff in the water. So getting some clear footage of bass strikes and then the stuff going over logs. So I'll be reaching out to you probably shortly to see about that service, because that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, no problem. So what I'm wanting to do is basically get everyone together at one time, because like I mentioned earlier, these bass are expensive, and I don't want to just have them setting out here forever. So I'd like to get everyone together and do it all at the exact same time. That way I can then return the bass, and I don't have to keep trying to go and get new bass and bring them. And so I'm going to get basically a waiting list, try to get a good five or six different people that want me to get that footage and get it all knocked out in the same week, is what I would like to do. It'd make it a lot better.
I'll bring you some bass. I'll bring you some Sharon Harris slot limit bass. No,
I'll have to go catch them.
Yeah. Pete, what you got, man?
Man, Trey pretty much asked every question that popped in my head before I could ask it. But the only thing that I have left is, what do you feed the bass? Like, what is do you just dump a sack of,
crawdads
in there? Or?
That's a secret, man. It's classified. No, I'm just kidding.
That's fair.
The reason that we have to get new fish every 2 weeks is because we don't feed them. They can survive a long time without food, unlike us. That
explains a lot now.
The main reason for that is did you guys happen to go to the 50th? What was it? The 50th anniversary there in Springfield, the World's Fishing Fair. Did y'all happen to go there?
Oh yeah, no, I didn't make it, unfortunately.
Y'all didn't make it? Okay. Well, my trailer was there, and they put a bunch of fish that hadn't been purged. Okay, purged is where they just basically don't feed them and put them in a separate container for a couple of weeks, or at least a week, to let them flush out their system. All right. And so they put a whole bunch of those fish in there. And so what do you think they're doing the whole time they're in my tank? They're sitting there pooping. And so what it does is it makes it to where you can barely even see the fish. It's so cloudy. The water is cloudy. It's all slimy. It's disgusting. They're breathing ammonia. It's really, really bad for the fish. So people ask me, do you feed the fish? No. So it makes me look good. They bite. It makes me look good. I'm just kidding.
True. Yeah. No, you're right.
Well,
it's because
that's like conservation itself.
Yeah, it wouldn't look like a good aquarium if I fed them. It would be nasty, disgusting, smelly. You wouldn't even be able to see very well. There's a lot of better reasons in it making me look good.
Well, for everyone out there, everybody poops. Okay, it happens.
Even fish.
Yeah, this discussion. I know we're wrapping up here, but this discussion, not feeding them. Do you control the water temps when you're traveling to keep the water temperatures down lower, so the metabolism they don't need to feed, or is it kind of just whatever the air temps are?
It's basically whatever they're used to. So the time of the year is everything. We have lost many fish from our experiences over the years where we shock the fish by going from really cold water to really hot water. And so we have learned how to properly transport fish from one temperature to the next. And yes, their metabolism slows, and that's what we want. We want them, whenever they're traveling, we actually add chemicals that slows their metabolism, that adds slime to them, that keeps them calm, because if they get stressed out, they'll die. And we can't have them die, so especially not before the show. So that we keep the temperature as close as we can to the tank that's in the back of the truck, to the water where we're going. But if we have a bad fluctuation, we have to actually take the fish and put half of water from the tank into half of water to the tank that's in the back of the truck, and let them set there for a few minutes to acclimate slowly, in order to not shock them and kill them, because you can actually kill them that way.
Well, keep these fish alive and throw them back for me to catch. So, Adam, before we wrap up here, man, do you got any final words or anything that you want to say to those either listening or watching to the show?
Nah, just follow us on Facebook, and if you see me driving down the road, just honk and wave.
Honk and wave. You do the whole trucker thing, like.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
Awesome.
Well, we appreciate you. We know you're on Central Standard Times a little bit later here. Like I said, just hang out for just a minute. We're going to wrap it up. Ben, Pete, you got anything you want to say? We appreciate you, Adam, joining us from the Bass Tubs of Oklahoma. You're all about education and information, which aligns with the way that we want to do this show and continue growing a culture of anglers, helping anglers one cast at a time.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.